Declaration of Independence says that all people are created equal and are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But these promises have not always been applied equally. After September 11, 2001, fear reshaped the United States. And for many South Asian and Muslim Americans, that fear turned into suspicion and discrimination. This is not just a story about a moment in history. It is about who is protected at times of crisis and who is left behind.
However, racism against South Asians didn't begin after 9/11. Decades earlier, South Asian communities in New Jersey were being targeted simply because of how they looked and where they came from. One specific hate group made this prejudice violent.
In the 1980s, South Asians in New Jersey were targeted by a violent hate group known as the Dot Busters. Members of the group harassed families, assaulted individuals, and vandalized homes simply because of race. In just 9 months, more than 15 attacks were reported. However, many more went unreported. This violence showed how fragile equality was already. Then 9/11 happened and fear went national.
Let's just get back.
In the days after 9/11, Muslim Americans publicly condemned the attacks and called for unity.
It's because of the perpetual foreigner myth overall. That's the myth that Asian Americans will never truly be a part of the American population. We will always be a foreign entity or foreign group in the US. The idea that we'll always hold on to or be labeled in that immigrant status rather than being fully integrated into the American community and considered as fully American.
We are members of one human family, one human dignity, one human worth.
But calls for unity did not prevent suspicion.
I think before there was a lot of speculation. People were, a little bit suspicious of the American Muslim community. They were suspicious of Muslims overall.
After 9/11, discrimination didn't just come from individuals. It was written into policy, and through detention, surveillance, and secret prisons, the government treated entire communities as threats instead of citizens.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
The U.S. government expanded its use of detention in secret prisons, often referred to as black sites. Many men were held without being charged, without access to lawyers, and without knowing how long they would be detained. Some were sent to secret locations overseas where interrogation methods included physical and psychological abuse. Human Rights Watch reports that over 80 recordings of interrogations were destroyed, preventing accountability. Despite these actions, no government officials were held responsible, and these practices directly challenged the constitutional rights the nation claimed to protect.
Through programs like special registration and others, the government specifically tried to identify people from countries that they believed were connected to the 9/11 attacks. When students learn about 9/11, they only learn about the attacks and they learn about the war in Afghanistan. They don't learn about Islamophobia. They don't learn about the war on terror, which is the state violence that I alluded to earlier. And they don't learn about how these narratives and policies continue to shape what we see today.
Immediately post 9/11, I think I mentioned Sikhs were subject to a 100% secondary screening rate at certain airports across the country.
Racism doesn't only cause physical harm, but it can also change how people generally feel in their own communities and homes. National survey data from the National Library of Medicine expresses how long-term racism can affect an individual's attitude and lifestyle.
This chart compares happiness levels across white and black families in the United States. It shows that areas most affected by historic and present-day racism consistently report lower levels of happiness over time.
And who never comes to mind is a white person, because of this myth that white people are innocent, that white people don't perpetuate this kind of action, that terrorists responsible for domestic violence, for domestic terrorism in the United States are never white. In fact, that's not at all true. On the contrary, a lot of domestic terrorism is due to white people.
The experiences of South Asians after 9/11 reveals a deeper truth about American democracy. When fear replaces fairness, rights become conditional. The Declaration promises liberty and equality, but these words only matter if they apply to everyone, especially during times of crisis. The story of South Asians after 9/11 isn't just history. It's a reminder that equality isn't automatic, and it has to be defended. The Declaration of Independence was written to establish a nation built on freedom. But after 9/11, fear reshaped how those principles were applied. For many South Asian Americans, being legally protected did not mean being socially protected. Suspicion replaced trust, and identity became grounds for surveillance, discrimination, and exclusion.